And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about, lots of whining, lots of complaining, lots of very angry Republicans losing their minds. Actually, people on both sides, the extremes on both sides, kind of upset. A lot of chatter about, anger. And it's one of these things where you go, if everybody's unhappy with it, probably a reasonable deal, maybe. But what's interesting to me is one thing grabbed me. Now, look, I've talked about Republicans and them not caring about people for a very long time. I've done this for a while. But Glenn Grothman, the Republican congressman from Wisconsin, he caught my attention. It was one of those things that, look, we've been talking about what was in the Republican plan to slash and burn. We've talked about this latest rendition of sequester. But Grothman caught my attention in that he was angry that they didn't attack people who get low-income housing assistance. He was really mad that they left low-income housing untouched. And he said, I think as far as discouraging work and marriage, I think low-income housing is a more dangerous program than food stamps. Because, hey, what better to force people into marriages than desperation? Yeah, that's healthy. That will bring healthy relationships. And this is the thing that really just freaks me out about where we're heading as a country. We'll get to all of the deal stuff and who won, who lost. But this one thing I was kind of stuck on. Because this is saying, look, we want people desperate enough that they're going to have to, women, let's be honest who it is. We're talking about women, that they're desperate enough to marry someone like Glenn Grothman. I mean, that's where my mind went. That the only way that a Glenn Grothman today would get married is, desperation. And this is the weird part of where we are. This idea that we're going to go after low-income housing, we're going to go after people and their ability to keep a roof over their head. I mean, it's amazing to me. Now, what we found is Biden's a pretty good negotiator. As far as I've seen, the deal not great. I personally don't think there should have been any deal here because this was not something that you've negotiated over, and where Republicans won. And this is an important thing. Republicans won big here in that they've normalized this kind of hostage situation. That's the victory. The victory here is that they've normalized this situation. They've normalized holding people hostage. They've normalized this kind of, we have to get our pound of flesh or we're going to crash the economy. They've normalized this. This is now something that we take, and we're going to take every time. This is, again, this is where their victory was. They didn't get a lot of the things that they wanted, and boy, you should hear them complain about it. But the victory was that we are now going to take this kind of scenario as what happens going forward. And Democrats don't use this tool as much. And I think Biden in this moment has to go, look, we got to get rid of this. This is not what you do in this process. Look, if you want to hold the budget up, if you want to go through normal means, that's one thing. Because look, everything that the Republicans got, they could have gotten through the normal budget process. This is extraordinary. This is special. This is the kind of thing where you go, this is how you lose privileged status as a nation. This is how you lose the reserve currency. The rest of the world goes, they're not responsible enough. They're not serious enough to have this responsibility, to have this privilege. And look, there's all kinds of talk about what's going to happen with McCarthy. Are they going to come after him? Are they going to throw him out? Are there enough, are there enough Freedom Caucus freaks out there to block this? There's because we still don't know that this is going to pass. But this is one of those things, and the frustrating part of this is, they got a pound of flesh here and there. They've got little drips and drabs, but that we've allowed this to happen, and that we now think this is normal. That's my problem in all of this. Now, look, we could go through, every bit and piece. There was some money that's going to help make sure that our soldiers don't get screwed the way Republicans had originally planned. They did get a little victory on, taking some of the funding away from the IRS that the Biden folks had wanted. And congratulations. When you get audited, when working class people start to get audited, and it's going to happen, it's going to be because they don't have the resources to go after the big fish. When they start going after people who are, in that upper tier of the middle class, that's because, hey, they've got a little bit extra resource. So you folks cheating at the top, they're going to come after you. So remember that when this happens, and remember that Republicans protected the very wealthy in this moment. That's what the victory for them was, that they were able to claw a little bit back, of which my congressman, Scott Perry, was very angry about. In fact, had a very nice, very cute graph about how, their limit, save, grow, whatever that was, how that passed with Republican support, and, how it was going to cut and gut and slash and burn, and how the deal with the swamp, that's what the GOP deal with the swamp, didn't do all the things that they had wished and hoped and had such great hopes for. And, obviously the IRS was part of it. In fact, he said that, 98% of the money is going to stay with the IRS. I'm not sure where he dreamt that number up. Not sure which orifice that was chosen from. But the number is a little bit more significant than that. But what it did do is we didn't default. I guess that's a victory for the Biden folks. We're not going to go gutting all of the things that had gotten passed in the first 2 years. It's a win. We're not going to attack seniors. We're not going to gut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. So I guess these are victories. But my problem keeps coming back to, we have normalized this kind of crazy, and it's got to stop. It really does. It's that kind of angry for me. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Kurt from Akron on line one. Kurt, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, and thanks for responding to my email this morning or this afternoon too. And you just said something right there. We normalized it, and the problem is both sides, and on the extreme, they have purity problems. Like, oh, I'm mad because Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination, so I'm not going to support anything Hillary Clinton does, or I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't like Joe Biden because he's selling me out because of my purity. And, it's just, these are where you vote your conscience, and once you get your candidate, that's when you got to start supporting the team. And that's how it gets normalized. That's how this stuff that you just talked about gets normalized, is people just can't look past their own interest on both sides, it seems.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, when you get to the fringes, we've got problems, and sadly, the fringes
and they're both dangerous.
The fringes are the problem. I mean,
right.
they're willing to kill the practical over the perfect. And look, the Republicans are going to try and do this with this bill. The talk is that
exactly.
they're going to try and block this. And look, some of the Democrats, there's some talk too that this may get.
Here I just read this. That it just passed the committee. The debt ceiling just passed the committee, so I guess tomorrow it will go to the full House.
Yeah.
But like I was telling you earlier too, back in 2020, Joe Biden was not my first choice. Joe Biden was maybe 5 or 6 down on the list. He wasn't even in my top 5. And I actually supported Pete Buttigieg because I like the idea of a young guy who, to be honest with you, any guy who learns to speak Norwegian so he could read a book in Norwegian, that says a lot about this guy, right? But my thought was, what is acceptable to me and what I find okay isn't necessarily acceptable to the country as a whole. So even if my guy does not win the nomination, I will support the guy or girl, woman, whatever you want to call her, who does become the nominee, and do everything I can in order to get that person on my team elected so that we can have a Build Back Better, so that we can have, you know, free pre-K and free public or free community college, and we can get people who have student loans at least $10,000 to $20,000 written off, because statistics show that prior to the student loan crisis in the 1980s, when it started, your average age for a first-time home buyer was 29 years of age. Now it's 41. So there's a lot of things that maybe I didn't agree with Joe Biden on or Hillary Clinton on. But you know what? Like I said, the primaries are where you have your vote of conscience, but then you have to go and support the person who is your nominee, who believes more in what you believe in versus the other guy. Because eventually what's going to happen is all these security people who stay home because Bernie's not the nominee, or they're going to do everything they can to get Bobby Kennedy Jr. elected or become the nominee. You know what? You're going to end up with Donald Trump. And then a lot of you people who support these fringe people, which eventually someday maybe these people like Bernie Sanders or a Bernie Sanders type or a Bobby Kennedy Jr. type will come along. But you know what? If you get a Donald Trump or you get a Ron DeSantis, if you have some of the things that are strikes against you in these people's minds, you're not going to be able to vote for those people that you believe in anyway. So you're going to be disappearing off the face of society. So, that's what it comes down to.
We are definitely in interesting times, Kurt. I appreciate the call, and thanks for the emails as well.
Thank you, and you have a good night.
Thanks for your time. No, look, this is one of those moments where we've got to decide which way we're going here. And I don't want to default, but I still think the president has to move in a direction to use the 14th Amendment to undo this, to stop this kind of hostage taking. I do want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people from the top.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Geraldo Rivera back at it again. What I love is we're in a moment where Republicans are looking for anyone to save them from themselves. And I guess Geraldo is going to be that guy. Because look, the reality is Republicans are losing their minds. And there's an opportunity here for Democrats if they get their heads out of the sand and start taking up some of this slack. There's a chance here to unite the country. But Geraldo, he's floating the idea again of President Biden pardoning Donald Trump, kind of the way Ford pardoned Nixon back in the day. It was for the good of the country. It was for to put all this stuff aside, get it off our plate, and help us to move forward. He's arguing that clemency would be Would be good. It would be good for the country. Trump would get it for what happened on January 6th and the inciting of the riot and the violence and all that came out of January 6th. The Mar-a-Lago documents that have some problematic parts to it, and anything else that the federal government, basically a clean slate. But the price. Oh, the price. The price is Donald Trump can't run. He's going to have to pledge that you're no longer going to seek the office of the presidency, and he can just ride off into the sunset, clear conscience, no problems, just go live out his days, playing golf in Mar-a-Lago. Now, first, nice job, Geraldo. I mean, carrying the Republicans' water, trying to get him out of the way, because look, he's the front runner right now. Right now, he's the GOP nominee. He's going to have to be knocked off that perch. And I don't see anyone in the field yet who's going to do that. So this is a way of trying to clear that field. And if Biden's smart, he'll stay out of it. Let the Republicans deal with their issues. And I said this back when they threw Marjorie 3 names and the other idiot, I think it was Gosar, off their committees. Why are Democrats saving the Republicans from themselves? Let them be who they are. And let them go down and deal with their own issues. And Trump is a huge one. So for me, if Biden goes in and that's, I guess it's kind of a moot point, to be honest, because there's no way Trump is going to admit he did anything wrong ever, which, as I understand, is part of what a pardon gets you. He said, you go, hey, I did something wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Those words have never come out of Trump's mouth. So I think it's a moot point. But I still don't think Biden should do it. Now, here's the thing. Republicans, when you think of old school Republicans, you think of, sound fiscal policy, which, when they're in power, out the window. You think of smaller, less intrusive government. Yeah, they've shown us that's not them anymore. Strong military, background backing, and business. So when you think of the GOP, that's what we've been trained over the years to believe, that they're the party of small, less intrusive government, wise fiscal policy, the military, and business. We've shown that the first two, the smaller, less intrusive government and the fiscal responsibility, that's nuts. But we look at now how they're trashing the military. And if you looked on Memorial Day and you saw, someone like DeSantis out there, saying how weak the military is and that it's woke and, it's because of all this political ideology and gender pronouns that our military is so weak. And my mind, as I'm listening to this guy go on and on about how, this isn't the military that when I was there, they're weak and they're soft and they're all these things. And I'm going, have you bothered to talk to any of the people who are actually in the military? Do they feel that they're weak and soft? Do they feel the way that you're portraying them is accurate? Do you think that the rest of the world, hearing somebody running for president saying right now, hey, if you want to do something to the U.S. right now, because, all of our soldiers are, they're just running around in pink tutus. They've given up their weapons for mascara. This is the message that you're sending the world. So I got to wonder, my military friends, are you okay with having someone like DeSantis say, you're all weak. You're all indoctrinated. You're all no good. But I'm going to fix you. We're going to re-indoctrinate you in my mindset. And it's really quite frustrating on one hand, but scary in that if someone like, let's say, crazy Kim Jong-un thinks, hey, they're weak, and decides, hey, we're gonna keep testing, that puts our people in harm's way. Now, you've got Tommy Tuberville, the dumbest guy in the U.S. Senate, who has been single-handedly holding up military nominations going forward. As a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, he's holding up nominations because evidently he claims that there's abortions on demand everywhere. It's all over things that he disagrees with, that he thinks is going on. It's like, there are drag shows every weekend. The military, our soldiers are dressing up in drag. And you go, what are these people thinking? There's a moment here for Democrats to step forward and go, no, this is not what our military is. This is not who our military is. Just because we're not Uganda, ready to take people of the LGBT community out and shoot them and execute them, just because we're not them, doesn't mean we're weak. There's a moment here for Democrats to take a very strong military stand and move some of the support, because Republicans keep bashing the military at every turn. Remember when they used to flags and soldiers all around them? I do find it interesting that instead of soldiers now, DeSantis has got a battleship in the background. I wonder how many of the Navy people that on that ship are, well, I guess in drag right now. According to him, I guess it's all of them. And it's not just the military. Conservatives are going after corporate America. They first it was Bud Light. Oh, they sent a can to some woman. Oh my God, end of Bud Light. And then they went after Target. They started harassing employees there. Now, this blew my mind when I saw this. Now they're going after Chick-fil-A. Yes, that Chick-fil-A, the one who's given millions of dollars to the anti-LGBT world. And the owner, the CEO, this Kathy guy, who is one of the biggest funders of hate groups in the country, they're now woke. They're to be boycotted. And I'm going, what? Have you lost your minds? And the answer is yes, because they believed, because of some online commentator, they believe that Chick-fil-A has hired a diversity and equity person, a new VP to run their diversity programs. Now, the reality is Chick-fil-A did this back in 2021. They've already got it because they wanted to get people to come work for them. Kind of hard to recruit people if you're not making them in part of the community. So they in their crazy right-wing views. But they have someone who's, talks about diversity and inclusion and all this stuff to come work for their place, because that's how you recruit people. Maybe when DeSantis talks about the military, the recruiting going off the end, maybe this is part of this. But it's not just Chick-fil-A they're targeting. Also, they're targeting Walmart, because Walmart's too woke. Netflix is way too woke, and Alphabet. They're going after all of them, all of these big companies, because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, for short, for the simple. And this is where just being a decent person is a violation in right-wing crazy land. Just being a human being and compassionate is a bridge too far for these folks. And that's dangerous stuff. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find your favorite podcasts, you'll find ours. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day known as among the darkest days for labor, the Memorial Day Massacre. For days, strikers had suffered arrests and severe beatings at the hands of Chicago police, who physically prevented them from establishing picket lines at South Chicago's Republic Steel. Joined by supporters from practically all walks of life, strikers decided late in the afternoon to march to the gates, determined to picket. For Michael Dennis, author of The Memorial Day Massacre and the Movement for Industrial Democracy, Southeast Chicago became a crucible in which a wide spectrum of social and political alternatives became possible. The Little Steel strike was propelled by the realization that workers lived in a country dedicated to democratic freedom, but worked under conditions of near autocracy. Men, women, and children, black, white, and Mexican workers all chanted CIO, CIO as they marched down Green Bay Avenue. The Chicago police waited for them, armed with revolvers, nightsticks, and blackjacks. Strikers defended their right to picket as police once again formed a solid line, preventing their passage. The police soon launched tear gas canisters and began firing into the crowd. The picketers turned away in a futile attempt to escape the staggering brutality. When the dust settled, 10 were killed, 30 more shot, 28 others hospitalized, with 8 suffering permanent disability and another 20 to 30 injured. Virtually all those shot had wounds in the back or side. Michael Dennis notes the massacre cast the die for the strike. Collaboration between municipal officials, corporate leaders, and the military in suppressing the strike would go uncontested by federal authorities and cheered by middle-class opinion. The campaign to organize Little Steel had suffered a crushing blow.
If poobahs of the National Democratic Party wonder why working-class families, which once formed the party's solid base of political support, have gone astray, they might ponder the awful message they're sending by constantly smooching Senator Joe Manchin's tail. The multimillionaire West Virginia coal baron and anti-democratic Democrat is demanding that a massively polluting pipeline named Mountain Valley be rammed through rivers, watersheds, national parks, and down the throats of the people of West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina. Why? Money. The senator's fossil fuel funders, who own the project, want the federal government to mandate construction of their corporate boondoggle. For a decade, gutsy grassroots groups have rebelled and defeated these Wall Street profiteers, and the people of this Appalachian region are still adamantly opposed. But here comes Biden to rescue Manchin and his fossil fuelers with a dirty backroom deal overruling the will of the people. Proclaiming that he wants to advance America's conversion from fossil fuels to renewable energy, Biden is pushing a bill to make it easier and faster to get federal approval for new energy projects. Fine. But his bill specifically greases the skids for more fossil fuel projects. And guess which one is the first in line for quick approval? Yes, Brother Joe Manchin's Mountain Valley Pipeline. Pumping frack gas through 3 states would produce a mess of leaks and spills, but the project would also emit some 40 million metric tons of planet-warming gas a year, equivalent to the annual pollution of 10 coal plants. As the Natural Resources Defense Council puts it, we won't build the clean energy economy of the future by doubling down on the dirty fuels of the past. This is Jim Hightower saying, for information and action on this raw deal, connect with Appalachian Mountain Advocates, appvoices.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I saw this piece the other day over at Politico, and I don't generally spend a lot of time reading Politico, but this just grabbed me. And the headline, How Buy America Could Derail High-Speed Trains. And it's all about how we don't have the manufacturing capacity to build these high-speed trains, and that we should chuck the Buy American provision so we could bring this stuff in. And I'm going, this is the kind of defeatist nonsense that we've been having shoved down our throats for years. Look, if you want to participate in our economy, it's time you make things here. If you want to put high-speed rail in here, build it here. That's the answer, not the answer that they gave. And here to share some thoughts on what the answer is, and maybe I'm too critical of Politico, but here to share some thoughts, I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to come share something. He's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, great to be with you tonight.
So, am I reading this right? I'm looking at this headline. I'm reading through this article, and I'm going, yeah, we don't have this stuff to build these high-speed rail cars yet. We don't have the ability yet, but we could. I'm pretty sure we could.
Yeah, I know we could. I mean, first, let's just, your criticism of Politico, honestly, pretty spot on. What happens here are industries who want access to this money because there's a lot of resources available for building out infrastructure or building out clean energy manufacturing. But there are strings attached, right? And those strings are that you have to do the production in the United States. All of these industries are used to outsourcing. I mean, that's totally what they do. and we really don't have high-speed rail in the United States yet, right? And so they're like, well, we don't have high-speed rail yet, so we shouldn't have Buy America. Like, let us bring it over from China or wherever else. And the problem with that is that, you'll never get the manufacturing jobs that way. And so, and it's not that hard to get them. And this is the thing. I mean, we've had these requirements on electric vehicle chargers, and you've seen dozens of companies, many of them from like Asia, Australia, Europe, set up shop in the United States and stand up a factory here because they're like, you know what, we want to access this money.
Yep.
But we're going to make these chargers in the United States. But the problem is that these other industries, solar industry is another good example. They hire these spin masters and they go pitch Politico or whomever and say, oh man, we don't have this, and so this is going to delay it. This is going to delay the goals of like climate or high speed rail or whatever. So Buy America is impractical, and that's completely the wrong lens through which to view it. I mean, Buy America is supposed to be an insourcing incentive, and to say, you know what, if we're not making it here now, we ought to be making it here soon.
Yeah.
But what they just want to do is continue to have the stuff come in offshore and get taxpayer money for it in the process.
Now, this is one of those things, and we've talked about this for years. Look, we've been losing manufacturing jobs for decades. Industries that used to be the bedrock of our communities are now gone. This is an opportunity if we're going to move to the brave new world of high-speed rail and electric vehicles and communications and 5G and all of this stuff. If this is where we're going, we should the money we're going to spend to get us there should actually trickle down to the people who are workers in this community. I am a big fan, and I've said this a gazillion times, of domestic production for domestic consumption. We make things here, you use things here. We trade for things that we cannot make. And rail cars, sorry, we can make those. Those are not special that we need to go somewhere else to get them.
Yeah, I mean, we have rail producers in the United States, and the truth is, and this is the honest to God truth, I mean, a lot of the companies that would be coming to the United States would be foreign owned. I mean, they would be Asian or European, precisely because we don't have high-speed rail in the United States and they have the know-how. But they will locate factories here, and we've seen this, right? I mean, we've seen this, like, for whether it's electric vehicles or the EV chargers, or to some extent solar now, and on, battery factories. It's like, we know we have to set up shop in the United States in order to access this money. And so my hope is that no one in Congress or the administration is going to read this Politico story and be swayed. But it is yet another example of the obstacles that we face here. And it's kind of obvious that we don't have high-speed rail manufacturing because we don't have high-speed rail. Right. I mean, why would we have it, right? And so, but this is the opportunity to bring the manufacturing to the United States. And it's got to be integral to the process. Otherwise, I think the average voter is going to view high-speed rail as being very elite, something that city people want, and it's going to connect them fast, and they're going to get left out of it, and they're not going to get any jobs. So why bother, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Yes, city people want them, but you know where those trains go through? They go through rural areas too.
They do. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a way of connecting this country in ways that we haven't done in 100 years. And what I find interesting, and what I guess what sent me off in this article, is that there's actually an association called the U.S. High Speed Rail Association who's advocating for not making the high speed rail in the U.S. That just sent me off the deep end, because as you said, you've got these spin meisters who are trying to create this environment of no, we can do this stuff cheaper, but with the name of U.S. High Speed Rail Association. That's what got me. I mean, the rest of it I expected, but just that name.
It's pretty frustrating, isn't it? It's like false branding a little bit, but they want the money. They want high-speed rail in the United States. They just want to bring it from somewhere else. And that's the problem with all of this. and it was the problem with a lot of other industries. And so what we've shown, and the administration has shown, you know what, we'll be flexible, we'll phase this in, right? You know, if it, but we're eventually going to want to make this in the United States because, Rick, you pointed out we have a lot of know-how with respect to rail. I mean, whether it's freight or passenger rail, we do have capabilities, and we're good at making complex things. You know, you think about aerospace or automotive, and we're very good at that. And so there's a lot of crossover with high-speed rail manufacturing, and all we have to do is have the right incentive, and we're going to get it here.
Yeah.
But it's not going to pop up on its own, and so that's why you have these Buy America requirements in the first place. And so, yeah, it's just red, white, and blue washing is what I would call what that association is doing, because they're there for the money, but not for the manufacturing jobs.
Now you've got an op-ed out now arguing that our federal Buy American rules should be implemented, that we should be moving forward on these, and arguing that we need to strengthen them and actually not just have them, but enforce them, because we've got rules on the books already. I mean, I think of the Berry Amendment that, says our military stuff should be made in the U.S., that we give waivers to way too frequently, and that's left us, I would argue, kind of in peril should something happen around the world on a large scale. So what should we be doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's and this is kind of like the behind the scenes stuff that is kind of really, the drapes are pulled and the curtains are pulled, and it's hard for citizens to peek in and see what's happening. But it's the rulemaking process. It's actually implementing all of this. And so this is where these special interests, like the high-speed rail folks or what have you, seek waivers and seek to weaken the requirements, and to do it in a way that is not easily exposed. But we are exposing it, and we're holding the agencies accountable and saying, you know what, President Biden said he wanted all of this money to be applied to U.S. manufacturing as we're building out clean energy or infrastructure, what have you. So let's do it. And unfortunately, some of the agencies are too cozy, I think you could say, with the contractors and the others, again, that have leaned on imports for a long time. And so it's an uphill struggle, but I think we're making progress. And we had thousands of people who contacted the Department of Transportation to say, don't weaken these rules. And so we're hopeful. We're waiting for the next step here, but we're hopeful we can get it done. But our job is to put some sunlight on this, so it's not easy for these moves to be made kind of behind the scenes, outside the view of most taxpayers or voters.
What I like about this is this should be nonpartisan. I go back to 2016, and I say this all the time. And I've had people come, well, you're always trying to give Trump credit for something. I'm not giving him credit for something. I'm just saying what is. He had his thumb on the pulse. We are losing manufacturing. This is an important issue to working class people. This should be something that unites us. This should be something that pulls us as a country together, communities together, saying, look, we want these jobs back. We want these opportunities to build our infrastructure, to build the future, but also, more importantly, to support our families and keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. That should be screamed from the mountaintops, not just by you, but by every politician and both sides of the aisle. This should be a unifying moment.
Yeah, it should be, and we know, because we've seen polls on this issue, that it's one of those things where it's like 90-10 or 85-15, and Republicans, Democrats, Independents all strongly support having their tax dollars go to Made in America purchases for our federal government or our infrastructure programs or what have you. And so the only reason why we haven't seen more of these Buy America programs over the years is that the big special interests like the Chamber of Commerce or a lot of embassies that have sway in the United States try to block all of this stuff. But we've been fortunate. You're right, because Trump did talk about it. He talked about Made in America a lot. He actually didn't really do anything until literally his last 2 or 3 days in office. Did an executive order on this that had a little bit of teeth. But Biden has really stepped up and done extraordinary work, I think, on Buy America, both through setting up an office at the White House to monitor this and to keep tabs of the agencies, as well as to have a personal commitment that the money flowing through is going to go to American manufacturing wherever possible, and the Congress agrees, and it's one of those few things that they've gotten done right over the last couple of years. So, we're hopeful, but we have a lot of ground to cover. As you mentioned, Rick, we've had these laws in place for a long time, but they've just been weakened over the years, and so we're getting it back up to where it should be, and we're adding more stuff to it. And I appreciate the attention that you brought to it, because it does make a big difference.
No, look, when we did our Working Class Heroes radio tour, we went to places, and I've said this before, that used to be. They used to manufacture, glass or rubber or you name it. That used to be the heart and soul of these communities, and that's gone. And it's been replaced with addiction. It's been replaced with broken families and chaos. This is a way to pull those communities back together, from a public policy standpoint, but more importantly, from a pride standpoint. When we talk to these folks, there still was that sense of pride that we used to make something here and we want to do it again. So this is one of those things, give the people what they want. They want to get back to work. They want to get the skills that they need, which is why I'm thrilled to see that, community college admissions are going up, that we're getting people the training and the skills that they need, that apprenticeship programs are full and moving in a direction to get us the knowledge and the ability of people to take a piece of metal and turn it into something, to have that human capital that we so desperately need and have been losing for far too long.
Amen. I mean, this is a welcome change, and it's one of those. I mean, the fact is that only 40% of Americans will get a bachelor's degree, if that, not even 40%. And so, but for these manufacturing jobs, it usually requires something more than a high school education, and that's where community college comes in. It doesn't even have to be for 2 years. It might be just a couple of classes or a training program, or, Rick, as you pointed out, an apprenticeship program, and then you can get a job. And if it's a union shop, it's going to be a family supporting job with great benefits, and you're going to be giving something back to this country, because you're going to be adding to our productive capacity and our economic security. And so we're slowly turning the ship around. There's more attention on this, and I'm very glad that we're seeing community college enrollment up. We need to make sure it's affordable. We need to make sure that it affects that it reflects the realities of today's student, which many of whom are not just out of high school. They're transitioning careers, or they have a family, or they have transportation needs, and so you have to factor in things like childcare and access to transit and flexible schedules and what have you. But the system is now starting to meet the students where they are, and I think that's a big help in getting that enrollment up. And manufacturers are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Look, I'd like to. There was news out that like dollar stores adding like 1,000 stores in the United States, and for people who want to shop, I suppose that's fine. A dollar store is not going to win us a battle if we need it. It's not going to be a source of good jobs for the community. We instead of 1,000 dollar stores, we need 1,000 factories.
Absolutely.
To go in.
And no, the dollar store front. I mean, I don't know if you saw the recent
right.
social media stuff coming out. They run stores with 1 or 2 people. There aren't even jobs that are being created, and then all of the handicapped, inaccessible stuff, all the problems with that model. You're right. We don't want that. We want to bring back that manufacturing capacity. But you hit on something a minute ago with education. I've been saying for probably about 10 years now that maybe we need to start looking at expanding from K through 12 to K through 14. that we need, 2 years of VOTEC, 2 years of community college, 2 years of apprenticeship, 2 years of something additional that you're not digging into your pocket that we're now going to fund, because we're moving into an era where we're so technologically advanced that currently K through 12 not going to cut it, that you're going to need those extra years. You're going to need them, and making sure that they're available, I think, will help poor and working class kids the most.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And I think that has to be factored into this thinking that, and this is the problem of honestly, getting parents, getting guidance counselors, getting others comfortable with this is going to be one of the biggest challenges, right? Because it's all embedded. It's like you do your 4 years of high school, and then you can do your 4 years of college, or maybe go to the military, or maybe get a job, or maybe, and too few people, it's like maybe you go to community college. But the good news, more people are looking at that. But I agree, it has to be affordable for everybody, and it has to be kind of baked into that thinking about what's next, and that so you have a path. And the cool thing about it, and I just know this from doing work with our steelworker partners, is that you can, if you train for a job in a mill, and it's a few months, and then you can get your union card, you can be on the floor, you can be making a family supporting wage in a hurry. And it is a complete game changer for somebody. And that's the difference that manufacturing.
That is the difference. Scott, as always, I appreciate the time. Great stuff. Hope people will take a look at the website, AmericanManufacturing.org. Scott Paul, thanks so much.
Hey, Rick, great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Make sure you check out their website, AmericanManufacturing.org. We'll get links out on social media. Gonna take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day that came to be known as the Republic Steel Massacre, or the Memorial Day Massacre in Chicago, Illinois. Workers had gathered to rally for a union at the Republic Steel plant. The crowd included men, women, and children, and began with a festive holiday atmosphere. But soon the festivity gave way to horror as police opened fire, shooting indiscriminately into the crowd of workers. 10 workers were slain, many others were injured. The violence was caught by a film camera, which captured chilling scenes of policemen beating workers with clubs as they tried to flee the violence. One of those workers was a woman by the name of Guadalupe Marshall. Lupe had come to the United States from Mexico in 1917. At the time of the strike, she was working for the famed Chicago Hull House, researching the conditions of Mexican workers in the city. During the massacre, she was wounded in the head. She was then shoved into a patrol wagon, where she tried to help other wounded people. One of the wounded died in her arms. Later, she testified before the U.S. Senate Committee of Education and Labor about what she saw that day. She said, quote, "As we were walking along to the patrol wagon, I noticed men lying all over the field. Some of them were motionless, some were groaning, but nearly all of those that were lying down had their heads covered with blood, and their clothing was stained with blood." The Senate committee helped expose what happened that bloody day in Chicago. The local newspaper blamed the violence on the workers, and the film of the event was suppressed by the city.
Republic's bloody ground, the 30th of May. Oh, brothers, lift your voices high for them that died that day. The men who make our country steel, the toilers in the mill. They said in union.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
It's great to hear Scott talk about, reshoring manufacturing and the future we could have. I mean, look, the high-speed rail, something that I would love to see. I would love to be able to, we're going to Chicago in July for Netroots Nation. In fact, we'll be in town the 11th through the 16th. We're looking at putting something together for listeners on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago to kind of bring people together. But it'd be great to be able to jump on a train and make it to Chicago and not have to fly, or we're going to drive because there's going to be 5 of us. But it's just one of those things that it would be great to have the option. It would be great to be able to get on a train here locally and in a couple of minutes be in New York City, 5 hours away. It would be great to be able to, to go home and visit in Cleveland and not be on a train for, well, there's no train right now. But it would be great to be able to do that. But you gotta plan for that. And look, reality, you've had a Republican Party who's been hell-bent against it. And some Democrats too. The lobby firms have done a quite well job of it. But I think about my wife telling me back in the 80s when she backpacked across Europe. You get a Metro pass and you could go just about anywhere. We don't really have that ability. Something I would love to see. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line 1. Alice, how we doing?
Semi-insanity.
All right, that's progress.
Absolutely. What I wanted to say was, I have lots and lots of relatives, and my cousin's daughter lives in Germany. And when she came over a year or so ago, she said she was very disappointed to find out, like, our transportation and our infrastructure. She said she was rather disappointed. And then last year, my cousins that live in Poland came over to visit, and they were telling me that because they have money, they own a ski resort in Zakopane, Poland, which is where my Polish side of the family is from, and they have been all over Europe, and they were telling me about getting on the high-speed trains, and in no time at all, they were at their destination. So I really believe, I agree with you, the Republican Party is just holding things up. Some of the Democrats are, and I think that, they can fight and try to put us back into the Middle Ages, but eventually we may get at least to the 20th century.
That would be a great start. It'd be a good start, at least to the 20th, if not,
yes.
not the current day. Appreciate the thoughts, Alice. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good stuff. No, I mean, look, even if you don't want to ride the train, this is what I've said a million times. If you don't want to ride the train, don't. But you know what having the option would do? It would get all of those people who are in front of you in traffic, the hours that they're saying we're going to be spending in traffic. And in a lot of major cities, I guess Los Angeles is next, where they're going to be charging you tolls to go through certain parts of town because, hey, we're going to have priority lanes like we see in many major cities, where if you're willing to dig in your pocket, if you got the money, you can save time. But if you're a poor working stiff, well, you're going to be sitting in traffic. This, to me, is one of those moments where you go, we can, we should, we must. And it would be good for the economy. It would be good for jobs. It would be good. It would be helpful. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
Tonight, most of the island is without power, and officials say they're only just beginning to survey the damage.
Super Typhoon Mawar slams into Guam. Global heating could expose billions to unlivable temperatures by 2100. Plus,
stop right now, no more oil and gas, stop fronting fossil fuels and end this madness.
Climate activists disrupt oil industry shareholder meetings.
In song. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
My friends across the aisle, the Grand Appliance Party is going to make sure your gas stove goes nowhere. The good news for you today is that if you have to shutter your business because the country defaults, your gas stove will still be there.
Oh, I feel much better. This is your Green News Report.
I look forward to the legislation of our time, the Appliance Bill of Rights.
Okay, Desi Doyen, it kind of spun up out of nowhere overnight, but a huge storm in Guam.
Yes, nearly the entire island of Guam is now without electricity after Super Typhoon Mawar rapidly intensified just before slamming into the U.S. Pacific Island territory as a powerful Category 4 storm on Wednesday. An unprecedented ninth Category 4 or 5 storm to hit a U.S. state or territory since 2017. Studies show that rapid intensification of storms is increasing in both frequency and magnitude, driven by rising ocean temperatures from human-caused climate change. A suite of new studies exposes the accelerating impacts and costs of burning fossil fuels. The first warns that ever higher temperatures generated by man-made global warming will render parts of the world uninhabitable outside of the geographic human climate niche, the temperature range in which civilization has flourished for millennia. If countries only meet their current climate targets, the world would be on track for 2.7 degrees Celsius of heating above pre-industrial temperatures in coming decades. That would expose about a third of humanity to unprecedented heat, forcing up to 1 billion people to migrate, in turn increasing conflicts over resources.
Sounds bad, but do I still get to keep my gas stove?
A second study estimates that a multi-day heat wave striking during a multi-day power outage in Phoenix, Arizona, would push nearly 800,000 people to seek emergency medical attention for heat stroke or other heat-related illnesses, overwhelming the city's hospital capacity. The researchers warn other cities face similar risks from overlapping blackouts and heat waves. Blackouts nationwide have more than doubled since 2015 as heat waves intensify because of man-made global warming. A new analysis by the World Meteorological Organization finds that since 1970, climate and water-related disasters have killed more than 2 million people and caused economic damages on the order of $4.3 trillion. More than a third of the economic damages from those disasters occurred in the United States, but nearly 90% of the deaths were in developing countries. The WMO says early warning systems have reduced the human toll of extreme disasters, but the trend of economic losses continues to rise.
Not a whole lot to snark about today.
No, unfortunately. And now a new groundbreaking analysis for the first time has quantified the economic burden that polluting companies have imposed on society. The report, called Time to Pay the Piper, finds that the world's top 21 fossil fuel emitting companies have caused more than $5 trillion in damages from decades of pollution and climate impacts. The study calculates that polluters owe at least $210 billion annually, or $23 trillion total, in climate reparations for current and future damages to come over the next few decades.
Yes, but think of all the profits they made.
Well, the oil industry certainly can't afford it. Highlighting the fossil fuel industry's record profits last year, climate protesters in the UK are disrupting big corporate shareholder meetings to increase pressure on the fossil fuel industry and its funders in the banking industry to stop causing catastrophic global warming.
Thank you.
At Shell Oil's annual meeting this week, CEO Sir Andrew Mackenzie, whose company pulled in a record $39 billion in profits last year alone, scolded the activists who delayed the meeting.
Excuse me. I think we've heard your point. You've made it several times over.
Yeah, you've heard their thoughts several times over, and yet for decades, you continue to kill the planet. What's up with that, Sir Andrew? For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Got to tell you, I've really enjoyed listening to Republicans lose their minds over the debt ceiling. It's been one of those things. We're saddling our children with debt. Aside from them really not knowing what it is they're talking about, other than the scare tactic that they throw out, I do find it interesting that they're the ones who are they're so concerned about the debt that they want the children to start paying it off early, which is why on Friday you had the governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, who signed a bill into law that's going to make child labor great again. We're going to make exploitation great again. Get those kids on the kill floor. Little hands can get into places and clean stuff. Yeah, and look, double win. They can start paying that debt off a little bit sooner. But here to share some thoughts on the big debt deal, find out who won, who lost, well, other than we the people. I've asked our good friend Bill Scheer to come talk with us. Bill is the politics editor over at the Washington Monthly. Bill, thanks for taking time for us.
Great to be with you.
So let's start with the winners, the losers. Who won in this?
I think Biden's a big winner. I think Kevin McCarthy's a big winner. To be honest with you, I think Biden needed a win, needed to show that he can make Washington work. Needed to show he's delivering on his promise to bring bipartisanship back. This is not the first time. He did infrastructure. He did the semiconductor bill. He did Ukraine aid. Did postal service reform. There's lots of bipartisan wins that he's done, and here's one more rabbit he's pulled out of the hat. And look, Kevin McCarthy, people thought that he was going to be under the thumb of the true nut jobs in the Freedom Caucus, the Matt Gaetzes and the Lauren Boeberts. They had this motion to vacate provision in the deal that he got the gavel. One person could call a vote and force him out of the speaker's chair. And Kevin McCarthy has basically done a deal that they don't like. And they do not seem to have the, if not the power to stop, the willingness to use that power to stop him. So they become marginalized in this process. And the worst fears I think we all have, which is a bunch of nationalists are going to blow up the global economy.
Yeah. That's
not going to happen.
I said the winners in this, the big winner is the Republican Party. What they won here is the normalization of using this as a tool to extract whatever things that they want. This isn't. They've normalized this as part of the budget process, and I don't think it should be. I don't think this is one of those tools that we should be normalizing, saying, "Hey, give us what we want, or we're gonna destroy our economy," and not just here but globally. I just think that that's the loss for all of us.
Well, let me say two things about that. One is the debt limit is stupid.
Yeah,
and we should get rid of it. And I think Democrats made a mistake in not doing that 2 years ago. You can't change policy through budget reconciliation. That's the procedure that's used to circumvent the filibuster.
Right.
You can change budgetary provisions. So you could raise the debt limit to $1 bazillion gajillion dollars, and then it would never be a thing ever again. I think they should have done that. Having said that, I don't agree that we have normalized hostage taking through this particular process. Because what McCarthy did was different than what Ted Cruz did in 2013 when he said, I'm not going to raise the debt ceiling unless you defund Obamacare. Or you go back to Newt Gingrich in 1995 when they said, we're going to pass a budget in the House and the Senate. It's going to cut Medicare. It's going to cut Medicaid. It's going to cut environmental protection. It's going to cut education. And you sign this, Bill Clinton, or forget the debt limit increase. A very specific ransom or the economy gets it. And what McCarthy did was not as severe as that. What McCarthy said was, look, I want spending cuts. I don't know by how much. I'm not going to put a number out there, but we got to do something. And he was constrained from doing something as extreme as what the Freedom Caucus would have liked. They want a 10-year balanced budget plan, which, sounds reasonable, but in reality would have been very draconian.
No.
McCarthy never proposed it. Supposedly that was a deal he promised to get the gavel, and he never followed through. Never floated it, was not part of the Limit, Save, Grow Act that passed the House, never was a non-negotiable demand put in front of Bill Clinton, in front of Joe Biden. McCarthy, one of the reasons why it was hard for Biden to just cut off negotiation was McCarthy had a veneer of reasonability. I just want to negotiate. I just want to talk. Even when they passed their bill, he never said it's this bill or nothing.
Right.
There never was that gun to the head move that Ted Cruz and Newt Gingrich tried in the past. So, is it great that the debt limit's still a thing that can be used in negotiations? No, again, I'd rather it not be there. But I think McCarthy is operating in a more reasonable set of parameters than what we had in the past, because when Gingrich tried it and Cruz tried it, it backfired on them because they looked like obnoxious hostage takers.
Now, what is in this? I mean, the one thing that I've seen that's going to take this past the election in 2024, so that's we won't have to deal with this until after, whatever happens then. There are some cuts in place. What do we know so far? And I guess the other question is, what are the chances that this doesn't pass?
I think it's going to pass. I'm not concerned about it not passing. I mean, even the Republican opponents of it admit that it's going to pass. They just want to try to get as big a number as they can to make McCarthy look bad, but I'm not even clear they're going to get that much. But this is basically freezing spending at like fiscal year 2022 levels, and then limiting the growth to 1%, which is less than inflation, at least for the next 2 years. I think the cap is a little less firm after that. There's some provision in there, and forgive me for being fuzzy about it because I'm trying to get my arms around it myself. That's supposed to be kind of like a backstop if they don't pass appropriations bills, and like a 1% limited growth kicks in automatically. But I think there might be some loopholes in that. I've seen different things argued about it. But in the short run, in the 2-year period, you're talking about keeping spending levels below rate of inflation. So an effective cut, which what McCarthy is selling to his people. And it might make Democrats feel that this is not right, that we shouldn't have accepted this under threat of debt default. Biden should have gone 14th Amendment or minted a platinum coin or what have you to avoid that. But keep in mind, this is a different economic moment we're in compared to, say, 2011, when there was the Obama-Boehner debt limit deal. At that 2011, we were still coming out of the Great Recession. Unemployment was still very high at 9%. Obama was worried about undercutting demand. He wanted to stimulate demand. You want to stimulate the economy when it's weak, and create more jobs. And so there was a fear that those spending cuts in 2011 were going to undercut that. Right now, we have record low unemployment.
Right.
We already have the Fed raising rates to try to limit demand. And so to have a little bit of a spending cut, I mean, I'm not saying I love every aspect of it. You don't want to be, hurting the poor necessarily. I'm not saying it's perfect, but in the aggregate, in the macroeconomic picture, what's the one weak spot of Biden's economy is inflation. It's easing, but it's still higher than it was when he came in. And Biden's job numbers in the economy, they're bad. They're worse than his overall job approval. What's going to fix that? Getting inflation down. If this makes the inflation a little bit better, so long as you don't tip into recession, I mean, you wouldn't want those cuts to be so deep you tip into recession, but I think they might have found the sweet spot here where it's a mild cut. The Fed can do its thing. I mean, they're trying to ease their rate increases. They're trying to find the sweet spot too. If they can do that soft landing where GDP is still growing and unemployment's still low and inflation is down, then Biden's golden in 2024. Right. And if Democrats have a good 2024, you can revisit all these budget caps in 2025.
No, that's an excellent point. When I woke up and I read about the deal, and I'm hearing everyone chirping from both sides. My first thought was, well, it must not be bad. If everyone's unhappy, it must be fairly reasonable. Because if someone's happy and someone's really unhappy, then you've got imbalance. If everybody's unhappy, then maybe it's not horrible.
Well, look, Republicans, they control the House. It's a narrow majority, but they control the House. I saw one analysis in the American Prospect, which is a progressive publication, saying, people should not be doing the glass half full thing that I'm doing right now, because sure, it could have been worse, but we should be doing all these other things that would be so much better. And generally speaking, yeah, I agree, but let's face reality. Republicans control the House. If you keep the lights on right now, I'm impressed, considering the way things have gone. And look, people thought that Biden would not be able to keep the lights on with the yahoos in the Republican Party, that we were destined to have some giant economic blow up, that Republicans would try to place the blame at Biden's feet. And if we can not have a global economic meltdown, and Biden can say, look, we did the American Rescue Plan in 2021. We avoided the worst economic cratering because of the pandemic. We kept the economy going. Yeah, there was some inflation early on, but we took care of that in the subsequent years. Republicans and Democrats, they're finding a way to make government work and not have everything fall apart. I did what I promised I was going to do in 2020.
Yeah.
That's as good a re-election message as he's going to get, in my opinion.
No, you're right. But it's so I guess I got to ask you, because this kind of was, it was kind of anticlimactic. It was being built up as this. And look, I did it too, because I thought the crazies in the Republican Party had a little bit more sway with McCarthy, and we'll still find out where this goes. But I was looking at it going, I think these people really do want to shoot the hostage. It was a little anticlimactic. So how much of what was being built up was maybe media hype, horse race thinking, and how much of it was actually potentially real.
Like I'm forgive me for being a little braggy here, Rick, but I wrote a piece in February for the Washington Monthly saying McCarthy wants a deal. McCarthy doesn't want to blow up the economy. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in the rhetoric that he's giving. He was talking about trying to do a deal ahead of the deadline, and I was saying, I think you should take this guy at his word.
No, I don't disagree with you on that. I don't think McCarthy wanted to blow up the economy or do the horrible thing. I just gave a little bit more credit to the Scott Perrys of the world and the Gateses and the Greens and the Boberts and the rest of them, the Gomerts and them. I gave them too much credit, I think.
Well, I think number one, McCarthy recognized that we talk about the debt limit as being this great leverage. It's not great leverage. It's a hand grenade.
Yeah.
It's a hand grenade that you don't want to blow up in your hands. If you can put in the other guy's hands, then fine. But you don't want it in your hands. You don't want people to think that you are trying to pull the pin. And so McCarthy recognized that from the outset and was trying to keep the temperature low all the way through. And when he was saying these things in February, when he was not talking about 10-year balanced budget in February, look, you asked me in November or December what the Scott Perrys and the Matt Gaetzes were going to do, I'd be like, gee, I don't know, guy. I'm as terrified as you are. These guys seem Looney Tunes. I think they want to shoot the hostage. I think they would enjoy blowing up the economy. And if they can oust the speaker with 5 votes, because Democrats would join them, and that speaker is too spineless to stand up to them, yeah, I'm worried what would happen. You asked me in December, I would have said that. But in February, when McCarthy was saying these more conciliatory things and not pushing 10-year balanced budget, and I did not hear a peep out of the Freedom Caucus at that point. That's when I said to myself, these Freedom Caucus guys, they're chumps. they're bluffers. They're grandstanders. They like to talk a lot of trash. They like to make a lot of noise, but they don't have the moxie. They don't have the spine to actually force that speaker vote, to force it to fall and own it. They want to whine and cry and stamp their feet. They don't want to own it themselves. And I think McCarthy recognized that, and basically he basically gave them the shoulder the whole time. I mean, even when he gave them some concessions to get the Limit, Save, Grow Act passed last month, to get the negotiations going. Literally, as that bill was being passed, McCarthy said, look, I know this is not the final offer. I know that we don't all agree on the particulars here. He basically said to Joe Biden, this is not something that has a hard 218. I mean, if everyone really agreed on that in their own caucus, he could go to Biden and say, look, this is the bill. This is the only thing that can get my caucus together tonight. If I back away from this, then I can't promise I can get anything passed. McCarthy gave up that tactic from the get-go. He said, this is just a thing. It is just to get you in the room. But now let's have a real negotiation with all the latitude in the world, because no one has really tied my hands here about what I can actually agree to you on.
No, good call. I mean, we'll see what happens in McCarthy down the road, but I think your assessment of the children not having the moxie to really touch the button or shoot the hostages, a lot of us thought that they were going to do. Good for the country. I got to be honest. I'm glad that I was wrong. But we'll see where it takes us. But Bill, as always, great stuff. I hope folks will check your stuff out there at the Washington Monthly. We'll get links out on how people can take a look at that. But Bill Scheer, thanks so much for the time.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What do you think? Do you think they wanted to? Do you think that this was a smart McCarthy who just played both sides against the middle? And interested to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, on Friday, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds signed the Let's Make Child Labor Great Again bill. She called them common sense labor provisions that allow young adults to develop their skills in the workforce. And this is, look, I'm not against kids working. I'm not. But when you see stories like this one from the Department of Labor that points out that, one of the chains of Sonics in Nevada, they have 6 of the Sonic locations that they illegally allowed 14-year-olds to operate fryers and all the stuff that are dangerous in a fast food restaurant. They're not supposed to. The law says workers have to be over 16 or over, can't be under. And when you find out that, you've got this chain that's got 170 violations of child labor law, and you've got, folks in Iowa going, well, just advancing their career options. Let those 14-year-olds on the kill floor to clean up the blades and clean up the mess. Yeah, let them get in there. It's good for their spirit, good for their career. I got a problem with that. Look, I want kids. My kid, he's a lifeguard. He works. He does his thing. My oldest daughter, she worked, but under supervision and not in dangerous conditions. You want to teach work ethic. You want kids to understand the value of $1 and what it takes to earn it. Most certainly, as parents, we want that stuff. But we don't want them to be put in situations of peril. And now, look, here's what I do understand. And I've got a bunch of my friends going, well, you're wrong, Rick. We should let parents decide. No, I'm not in love with this let parents decide argument. Because when you get further down the economic ladder, parents get a lot more desperate and are willing to, and out of necessity sometimes, put kids in peril just so that they can survive. And I think that is not something we should be allowing. Because look, and I said this from the start, when Iowa was moving on this child labor bill, these are not going to be my kids. These are not going to be, middle-class America. That's not who this is. These are going to be immigrant kids. These are going to be poor working-class kids. These are going to be the desperate of our society who are going to be the ones getting screwed into this. So for me, I think we need to have sane, rational protections in place. And I think these Republicans right now across this country and state houses across the country are going too far. But again, remember, they're the ones telling us we're going to protect the children. They're grooming the children to be accepting of others. But we want to exploit them to work. Yeah, you figure it out because I'm struggling with it. I want to quick get to an email from Barbara. She said, Rick, do you support Chick-fil-A? No, I don't. The reason I brought it up, Barbara, simple. I find it interesting that the chicken sandwich of the radical right is now being attacked because they're not anti-gay enough. I have never gone to Chick-fil-A. I will probably never will. It's not something that I have done simply because of their stance and their position and treatment of people. There are other options. As a consumer, I have the ability to do that. What I don't do is I don't go to Chick-fil-A and harass the workers and the customers there. I don't agree with the goals of the franchise, although I do agree with them being off on Sundays. Live your values. I'm in favor of that. But you don't see me in there harassing and intimidating their customers and their workers like you do on the right. I just don't go in there. I choose not to be a customer. And that's my right as a consumer. There are other places. What the radical right is doing is much more dangerous and much more destructive. And we hear the right complain about the left, they boycott things. Yeah, they boycott things by not going there, which my right-leaning friends have shown me. Violence works. Intimidation of violence works, because this is what they're really doing. They're showing up, getting in people's faces, and threatening and intimidating. And it's so far worked. This is where we need laws, and this is where the sane and rational among us need to step forward and stand up and speak out. So, Barbara, to answer your question, nope, don't. But I do find it interesting that even Chick-fil-A is not hateful enough for the radical right, and it's only going to get worse. Thanks so much for your email. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day that came to be known as the Republic Steel Massacre, or the Memorial Day Massacre in Chicago, Illinois. Workers had gathered to rally for a union at the Republic Steel plant. The crowd included men, women, and children, and began with a festive holiday atmosphere. But soon the festivity gave way to horror as police opened fire, shooting indiscriminately into the crowd of workers. 10 workers were slain, many others were injured. The violence was caught by a film camera, which captured chilling scenes of policemen beating workers with clubs as they tried to flee the violence. One of those workers was a woman by the name of Guadalupe Marshall. Lupe had come to the United States from Mexico in 1917. At the time of the strike, she was working for the famed Chicago Hull House, researching the conditions of Mexican workers in the city. During the massacre, she was wounded in the head. She was then shoved into a patrol wagon, where she tried to help other wounded people. One of the wounded died in her arms. Later, she testified before the U.S. Senate Committee of Education and Labor about what she saw that day. She said, quote, "As we were walking along to the patrol wagon, I noticed men lying all over the field. Some of them were motionless, some were groaning, but nearly all of those that were lying down had their heads covered with blood, and their clothing was stained with blood." The Senate committee helped expose what happened that bloody day in Chicago. The local newspaper blamed the violence on the workers, and the film of the event was suppressed by the city.
Dark Republic's bloody ground, the 30th of May. Oh, brothers, lift your voices high for them that died that day. The men who make our country steel, the toilers in the mill. They said in union.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
If poobahs of the National Democratic Party wonder why working class families, which once formed the party's solid base of political support, have gone astray, they might ponder the awful message they're sending by constantly smooching Senator Joe Manchin's tail. The multimillionaire West Virginia coal baron and anti-democratic Democrat is demanding that a massively polluting pipeline named Mountain Valley be rammed through rivers, watersheds, national parks, and down the throats of the people of West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina. Why? Money. The senator's fossil fuel funders, who own the project, want the federal government to mandate construction of their corporate boondoggle. For a decade, gutsy grassroots groups have rebelled and defeated these Wall Street profiteers, and the people of this Appalachian region are still adamantly opposed. But here comes Biden to rescue Manchin and his fossil fuelers with a dirty backroom deal overruling the will of the people. Proclaiming that he wants to advance America's conversion from fossil fuels to renewable energy, Biden is pushing a bill to make it easier and faster to get federal approval for new energy projects. Fine. But his bill specifically greases the skids for more fossil fuel projects. And guess which one is the first in line for quick approval? Yes, Brother Joe Manchin's Mountain Valley Pipeline. Pumping frack gas through 3 states would produce a mess of leaks and spills. But the project would also emit some 40 million metric tons of planet-warming gas a year, equivalent to the annual pollution of 10 coal plants. As the Natural Resources Defense Council puts it, we won't build the clean energy economy of the future by doubling down on the dirty fuels of the past. This is Jim Hightower saying, for information and action on this raw deal, connect with Appalachian Mountain Advocates, appvoices.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So this was something that grabbed my attention earlier today. Remember Tara Reid? She's the one who accused then Senator Joe Biden of a sexual assault. And look, I listened to the whole thing. I had people, explain to me, why she was part of the Me Too and she should be believed. And I got to be honest, I didn't buy the story. Didn't buy it. It didn't add up the way that it was explained. Well, interestingly enough, she has, I guess she's moved to Russia. Maybe she's hooking up with this Maria Butina. Remember her? She had the gun group from Russia that was funneling a bunch of NRA money around. There was a lot of coziness going on there. Well, evidently the both of them are back in Russia. Kind of makes you think a little bit. Kind of makes you wonder. I know it's all a hoax. It's all a hoax. The Russian thing. The Russians are as pure as driven snow. Yeah. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on maybe this and the rest of the big news of the day. I've asked our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, thank you, Rick.
So, what do you think of this this Tara Reid off? I guess moving to Mexico, to Russia. Does this kind of throw any signals for you?
Well, a couple of things I thought. She made the allegations about 3 years ago, I believe it was, and that back in 1993 she was assaulted, and there was nobody that she had. I mean, and anything can happen, and I know we all have a system and it looks at things, but on her case, there was nothing where she had went to somebody. In cases like that, they may wait, but they usually tell somebody. There's a whole, because it's so traumatic for them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I thought was interesting is that in December, the Russian diplomats tried to bring her for a meeting on weapons diversion. Now, why? What does she have as an expertise on weapons diversion? She has no expertise on that topic. Now, she didn't speak at the UN meeting. They tried this at the UN, the Russians. But she did interview Russia's Deputy Permanent Representative of the United Nations as a, quote, journalist she was on her own YouTube channel. Okay, you know how that runs, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out. There's been this back and forth where, she tried to go to the UN for weapons diversion, and of course she wanted to be at the UN saying, hi, here I am. I was attacked by, Joe Biden. And then finally she goes to Russia. So I think this has been in the works for a while. Obviously, because of the Ukraine situation, they want her over there for propaganda purposes. No question about it.
So you think that's what they're going to march?
With them. They tried to get her to the UN in December. That didn't work, so they, have granted her the ability to go over there. Of course, her living will be paid for, things like that.
Yeah, look, everyone needs food and rent money. I'm guessing that's part of this.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it in Russia or Afghanistan.
Yeah, this is one of those things where how much are you willing to allow yourself to be used, and are you really? I gotta tell you, even if I agreed with Putin, I'm not trusting that guy to. No, that ain't happening.
Well, right. Also, the other thing too, and this is so weird. She was fearing for her life. No,
where
if you're, if you've made this accusation, it's highly unlikely that the President of the United States would sick his assassins on you. Okay. So I don't know why she would be fearing. Nobody paid attention to her anyway.
Yeah, no, I forgot her name until I saw this story.
Right, exactly.
I
thought it was Tara Reid, the actress, at first.
Yeah, no, but I remember, I watched an interview with her as she was explaining what had happened, and it just didn't sound plausible. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where you go, look, I believe women when they say they've been assaulted, but when you start saying that it was in a public hallway, and it just didn't sound like it didn't sound plausible. Look, if you say, hey, push me into a broom closet, okay. I told somebody, like you said at the time, a friend, a relative, someone who would be willing to come forward, but there was none of that.
Right. Now, remember, too, and this got so little attention, but this is why I doubt her. Again, I'm always cautious. Even Santos has his day in court, right? I'm cautious about that kind of thing, but there's also plausible deniability on certain things. And here's something that you don't see in media, and I don't know why you don't, but there is I don't know if you've ever heard of Harriet Rye, but she is a 79-year-old author and a psychologist, right? And Rye and her husband knew Reid, and they knew her as Tara McCabe. She had rented a yacht on their or a place on their California property, and she took care of their horses and things, etc. Now, this was in 2017, wasn't that long ago, all right? And then she asked for financial help, and on and on and on. Money was problematic for her, and here's the other thing. She had spoken so highly of Biden to them, all right? So there is a background on her, but it's all positive.
Yeah.
And then she moved on. She burnt this couple, is what she did, and, she moved on. So if you look at this and you look at some of her history and her other names, Tara McCabe, she also, by the way, went by Alexandra McCabe, and she also integrated herself with other people, took advantage of them, extracted money from them, skipped rent payments, and walked out on other bills. She's been doing this. Now, again, you're not going to see what I just said in many articles, but it's a fact. Everything I just said is factual.
Yeah, no, I just looked it up, and you're right. In fact, the one thing, the woman said that she was deceitful and manipulative and a user.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
And she did it with multiple people, different names, etc. But the point is, too, she never, at any point in time with those people, it never came to light where she said, oh, by the way, I was assaulted by Senator Biden, who's now the president,
No, and look, for me, the other part of this is the right never really embraced her.
No.
I mean, there was some, spatterings here or there, but, if there was... If she didn't have all of this in the past, man, she would be the poster child, the attack dog in all of the right-wing media.
Right.
And
well,
they
even
really
the right
haven't touched her.
Even the right knew there was some change short of a quarter. Okay, even the right knew that.
And that's
a broken clock works. What do they say? Twice a day. So.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where if they're willing to pass on it, it's got to be bad. So I am not surprising. I want to get your thoughts on this because this Vivek Ramaswamy guy running for president has some aides who evidently were paid by the LIV golf tournament folks, the Saudis. It seems interesting to me that these folks have come forth, now saying, hey, we've got to register as foreign agents because, hey, we took the Saudi money, because it's being reported that potentially some subpoena action coming down from Jack Smith to the Trump organization for, information on this LIV golf and the Saudi real estate deals that are going on. Seems like interesting timing to me, or is it just me putting things together that maybe aren't linked?
No, I think it is interesting timing. He fired the consultants who worked simultaneously for LIV Golf, and he fired one of the firm's consultants that were on his presidential campaign, and that was after it was revealed the firm had also at the same time been doing public relations for a majority Saudi-backed entity, as they said in the news clips, and it was Gitcho Goodwin. The firm was led by a longtime operative, I guess, Gail Gitcho. I've never heard of Gail Gitcho, and Henry Goodwin, and they were registered, by the way, retroactively May 25th as foreign agents, retroactively. So, they're not going to get charged, but obviously they didn't do things, the right way. And then he hired them, and he's now, fired them. So I don't think he hired them knowing, they were doing certain things. But look, the Saudis have 100 ways to spread their influence and wealth.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. So they're everywhere, and the Saudis have obviously hired this firm that kind of serves as the front people for it.
No, what's amazing to me, Bob, and look, you spent years in Washington, so I
worked in Saudi Arabia.
What's that?
And I worked in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, that's right. But what I'm saying is you worked in Washington. You know that the money flows in from all over the world, and we're one of the few countries in the world that allows foreign governments to lobby our Congress and lobby our representatives. So I look at the Saudi money that comes in, the Chinese money that comes in, even the Russian money that was so influential for years, and I go, at some point, do we not have to look at this and figure out how to block this stuff from getting into our political system, or is it just too pervasive and impossible to do?
Well, a point I will make, and I made this at the time, and Senator McCain, the late Senator McCain, was furious with me. But in conversations I had with his staff, and when he had the campaign finance bill in my committee, McCain-Feingold, And I warned at that time, you can go ahead and deal with soft money, But at the time I said, let's do full transparency. House administration, Rick, also oversaw the Federal Elections Commission. So it would be easy at that time, to do full transparency, Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, money coming in, but also with any of these PACs or accounts or business accounts. And that's because all these things created, whether it's Soros or the Koch brothers or Karl Rove or whoever, a lot of these accounts are shadow money. You don't know who's doing what. And of course, they use the unions and the corporations saying, "Oh, that terrible union soft money or that corporation soft money," which we can debate. But the whole issue of dark money was left dark. And I think this all ought to be cleaned up so that, if people are using this money and it somehow gets in the political system. Now, here's what the lobbyists will say, this Gitchko Goodwin. And what they say is, well, sure, people like the Saudis seek out influential, lobby types. Well, the point, I guess, is those influential lobby types are mingled in politics on Capitol Hill, and they're taking Saudi money, Russian money, Chinese money, whatever money. And so they are connected, and there's a whole wink and nod there. And so I don't think these foreign countries ought to be able to hide behind lobbyists, quote, who are American, whose job is to influence the American political system.
Yeah, because I look at this LIV golf thing, and from the beginning, my mind was, this just seems like a honeypot. I mean, just a huge amount of money for people to get their hands in. Yeah, they got the golf tournament going on, but it seemed like an interesting laundering vehicle to be able to get all these people. Trump was involved in it. I guess Kushner was involved in it. A lot of people have been involved in it. It just seemed like a way
DeSantis.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like a way to pay a lot of people off.
DeSantis was involved. Look, LIV's connections to these candidates, it goes beyond Trump. And Ramaswamy, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Trump's organization knew. Ramaswamy, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's new in the system. He may not have known. But, Trump knew. And then what they did is this LIV, this Gitchko Goodwin, here, let's just put this together for 1 second if I could. Gitchko Goodwin was contracted to work for LIV, all right? And that was through something called a 50-state LLC and a public affairs P2 group, two subsidies of a consulting conglomerate called a GP3 Partners, if I've confused you yet, which has Phil Cox, Republican. Cox was a top advisor to the super PAC, supporting who? Ron DeSantis. I mean, I know that must sound confusing to your listeners, but just think about that. 4 layers till it got to DeSantis.
No, I mean, that's the point. That's how you launder money, Bob.
It is. There's 4 layers of laundering, literally. I just quoted 4 layers of laundering.
And along the way, there are a bunch of hands in that pot. So now you've got all of these people who are corrupted all along the way. And look, they're all now in on it. So you've corrupted the whole system. It's the same thing that, going back to that Maria Butina. It's the same kind of thing that the Russians did with her and the NRA.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or do you see it differently? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I'm the one way back when, who said in the House Administration Committee, and I had a couple people supporting me, Democrat and a Republican on the committee, but I said way back when, let's know every dime and every person. It's like pork. I'm okay with pork. Put our names on it.
Yeah.
Put our names on it. Attach little subtitles to the bills. But it's the same thing with this money, and I said it years ago. It all ought to be shown. Those PACs, the PG2, the PG3 that was under the conglomerates, all of that should have been immediately reported that it was LIV money, Saudi money. It wasn't.
How bad?
I'm all for it.
Let me ask you this: How bad really is it?
Oh, I think it's pervasive. I look at certain things and I see super PACs do certain things, and you wonder how they're being steered, who's really putting the money into it. I mean, people could, for whatever influence, could put tons of money in there, and they can do it through a P2, a PG conglomerate, just like I mentioned, and we will never know. We won't know who they are, what they're doing, what they're behind. And here's my idea. If we want to have fair game about this, put it all out in the open sunshine, and then, people can make judgments. The press, of course, would go after it then. But what I just went through right now, how much has the media or anybody on Capitol Hill said, wow, I didn't know there was all this legal laundering money, entities out there. I mean, it just gets dismissed. I think it's a big deal. I think it hurts our democracy. And Rick, it influences in ways you and I will never be able to find out if we had, 5 investigators hired.
No, I mean, and that's the thing that gets me. I mean, you look at the money that's being thrown around, and I remember years ago when a number of left-leaning, radio and TV hosts went to RT, and the Russian money that was coming in to kind of move and I would argue corrupt the message as a whole. There's just something wrong about this, and something that needs to be done about it. And I was like, no. People were like, no, it's not a big deal. I'm like, I don't know. I feel uncomfortable with it.
I think it is a big deal, and that's why when McCain had his bill, he was going to, quote, clean the system up, which more money went into the system than ever before after the bill passed. It just moved. That's the point. It just simply moved. And you will hear American politicians, and I was one of them at the time when we were passing these bills, you can't put foreign money in campaigns, You will hear American politicians say, we ban foreign money in campaigns. You don't ban it when you have 3 entities like I discussed, funded by Saudis, that goes into the hands of people who are running presidential campaigns.
I mean,
we have not stopped the influence.
No, it's crazy. In fact, I was just you brought up DeSantis, and you brought up this dark money, and there's a super PAC right now. In fact, I think it was CBS that reported this, that a super PAC backed by DeSantis, and the run for president. I guess they've raised almost $500,000, and somehow it's going to be transferred directly into his campaign account in the coming days. And I'm like, how is that possible?
Right, and also there's a Chinese expert. His name is Rush. I think it's pronounced Doshi, and Doshi, I believe. He's done a lot of work, and he shows how the Chinese have funded politically friendly research institutions, right? They've got language media centers, and these aren't necessarily, and some of them are legit, don't get me wrong, but this is where the government, the feds, need to look into this, because some of them are simply political tools. That's what they are. These institutes come out with policy drafts, then they filter out through people, they filter out through advocacy groups that are set up that are, quote, American, but all the information is coming from the Chinese. And he's uncovered a lot of this. They're out there, too. That we just don't hear about the Chinese as much because of Trump and the whole Russian thing and Paul Manafort. The Chinese are there, too.
I think the Chinese are actually worse because
Probably.
they're deep in and a lot more quiet about it. But the Russian thing, not a hoax. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it.
No, and when I was in China for meetings one time, I brought my own translator from the American Army, and I brought my own translator, and I said, "What are they saying?" And at the table at the college, they were talking about me. Now, this is back in 1996, that I had used the word China should be contained. And I got back and talked to my press secretary. This is pre-internet days, really. And we were like, where did I say that? We looked through articles. We used to have the paper clips. Do you know where the article was? It was in the Noble County Journal-Leader, a twice-monthly newspaper in Noble County, Ohio, 10,000 people, in 1995. The Chinese knew that, pre-internet days.
Yeah, they do their
homework. That's how much they target. I was in shock. How would they know that, And just think today of what they can do in these institutes. So I think it's a real problem. I would love to see somebody take this on in the Congress.
No, the money is the problem. Our greed is our undoing. That's the sad reality. But Bob, as always, I appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, our good friend Bob Ney. Seriously, I mean, something has to be done on just how pervasive and how ingrained the foreign money into these lobby groups really are. It's scary stuff. Quick break. Right back. Think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. So Donald Trump has pledged that if he is elected, he's going to end birthright citizenship. That's right. Yeah, never mind that Constitution thing. Executive order. You're going to use executive order edict from the on high to end birthright citizenship, which means that if you come here and you have a child here, this is in most countries around the world. If you have a child there and they're born on that soil, you are a citizen of that country. They want to do away with that. And look, there's been talk of this for years. Not going to happen. Good luck on that. We should be talking about an actual immigration policy, but that's too hard to do. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about building walls, and the Trump folks, back to the wall thing. Now, interesting, because I think of Trump and his love affair with Kim Jong-un. During the pandemic, evidently built a massive border wall. Hundreds of miles of border wall with the northern part of the country, because evidently that's how information gets in. That's how people get out. Those are trade opportunities. Things. Understand the difference here. And I gotta wonder, how when this changes here too. UN doesn't want people to get out. The idea is build the big wall so nobody can get out. Trump and them are saying, well, we don't want anybody to get in. And I would argue at some point, does it not become nobody gets out of here? Especially in MAGA world, where if you found out that evidently people were getting Trump bucks. Have you heard of this? Someone had set up a cash system with Trump's name, and idiots were buying Trump bucks, trying to figure out how to cash them in, only to find out that they're worthless pieces of paper. But they got Trump bucks, and my mind goes to that old saying, a fool and his money soon parted. Here it is, the MAGA crowd with their Trump bucks. Can you imagine? There was an AI-generated video of Trump saying, let's make America wealthy again. Come get our Trump bucks. I'm sorry. I find it hysterical. And to be honest, if I'm the enforcement folks, I am not. There's part of me that goes, don't even bother going after them. Look, I mean, you see the scammers all the time. Hey, go get eBay Motors gift cards and send them to us. If you're dumb enough to fall for that, we should go after somebody. But this, to think that Trump's going to start his own currency and you're going to buy in? Wow, and I thought crypto was bad. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any of the program? Podcast. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
Listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.